for me to welcome you back to your alma mater. At this point, you're normally invited to turn off your phones and electronic devices. On the contrary, I'm asking you to turn them on and to connect on our NYU Wi-Fi using all the information you find on the screen. I'll have a few homework for you later on. My name is Stefano Albertini, and I'm the director of Casa, Italiana, Zerilli, Marino, the Italian Cultural Center at NYU. If you don't know us already, and after almost 25 years of activity, that would be a shame, visit us at 24 West 12th Street or online at the address you see up there. We offer more than 100 events per academic year, all free and open to the public, ranging from conferences to concerts, from art exhibits to film screenings. We also host a book club, a film club, and we're proud to have both an opera company and a theater company in residence. I'm sure each of you will find something interesting, thought-provoking, and fun to do at the Casa. But first and foremost, Casa is home to the Department of Italian Studies at NYU, the largest and, according to the Chronicles of Higher Education, most prestigious Italian department in the US. It was the first department of Italian to have an endowed visiting professorship in Italian-American studies. Thanks to the foundation of the Tiro Segno Club, the oldest Italian-American club in the US, our students have a chance to study in depth all aspects of the Italian-American experience, from literature to cinema, from politics to material culture. The course, currently taught by Professor Josephine Gattuso-Hendon, sees the enthusiastic participation of students of all ethnic and national backgrounds, proving that Italian-American culture is not something that concerns only Italian-Americans. I had the fortune to see the whole documentary that we're seeing, of which we are seeing a preview tonight, The Italian-Americans, last spring at a private screening organized by my friend Anthony Tamburri, the Dean of the Calandra Institute at CUNY. And at that time, I promised John Maggio and Maria Laurino that Casa Italiana and myself would do anything we could to promote the documentary as much as we could. I hope with this event, I'm keeping my word. And here is your homework. Each of you should tweet, Instagram, and Facebook all your friends where you are right now and what you're about to do. Especially invite them to tune in to their public television station on February 17th and 24th to see the entire documentary. And now, please welcome the President and CEO of WNET, Neil Shapiro. Thank you.
Thank you, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here for tonight's celebration of all things Italian America. As home to the largest Italian American community in the United States, we're privileged to welcome you to tonight's preview of PBS's The Italian Americans and our companion film, Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey. I want to give a special shout out to the remarkable Gay Talese, I think one of our generation's most brilliant writers. You're going to see him on the panel tonight. And to our great mayor who let me into Gracie Mansion to interview him, and he's also in our film. So, Mr. Mayor, welcome. And I want to thank our host this evening, PBS station WETA, or as we call it in the PBS system, WETA, who produced the national film, and Casa Italiana at New York University. You know, I was preparing for what I wanted to say tonight. I tried to think about what the tri-state area might be like without any Italian-American influence, without our Italian-American brothers and sisters, and it's a pretty sorry state. No cannoli, no gelato, no ravioli, no Bennett, no Sinatra, no Valli, no Lucci or Bartiromo or Tucci, no LaGuardia, Como, D'Amato or de Blasio, and most unimaginable for me as a Yankee fan, no DiMaggio. But as you'll see in tonight's preview in our two-part Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey, the contributions of Italian Americans are vast and important to our community. And like so many immigrant communities, they suffered and prevailed over prejudice and discrimination. It's a story at once very familiar and very unique, and we're privileged to tell it on all our stations, 13 WLIW and NJTV. Sharing these stories of our community, its history, its people, its perseverance, are a critical part of our contribution to the tri-state area, a contribution that wouldn't be possible without the support of many of you. In fact, when we say viewers like you, we mean it. And I would say one more thing, there are only two kinds of people when it comes to Channel 13, the people who support 13 and people who are about to support 13. But now let's watch a short clip from the upcoming Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey, which will air on the 17th and the 24th at 8 p.m., just prior to the PBS program, The Italian Americans. Let's take a look.
They left their homes in Italy.
One home in one small town near Naples.
From a small town called Palo del Colle in a place called Bari.
My family comes from Avellino in Italy.
A little town called Caggiano.
And settled in America.
I can just imagine an immigrant arriving in New York Harbor and seeing the Madonna of America, Lady Liberty.
Landed at Ellis Island and then moved to East Harlem.
Astoria, which I love very much.
Two-family house in Bensonhurst.
They worked.
Most of the men in the family were longshoremen.
My grandparents were me, then my great-grandparents were all butchers.
And when they got to New York, the streets were not paved with gold. As a matter of fact, they weren't paved. And these people who came were expected to do the paving.
They created communities.
The building that I grew up in, my mom and dad and myself lived on one floor.
My Uncle Eddie, he's the youngster.
My grandfather and grandmother lived next door.
He used to live up the block, and I had two uncles live up the block.
My uncle and his children lived on the first floor.
My grandmother and grandfather lived up the block.
My great aunt lived on the first floor of the one next door. My grandparents.
They valued learning.
It was all about education.
My education, it really paid off.
He brought his education in, and here we have an educated butcher.
They loved their families.
I thought everyone had a million cousins.
My mother was the core of our family.
Mommy, incredible.
The 70th annual Columbus Day Parade.
And they loved their new country.
We are all Americans, first and foremost.
I feel very American, and I feel very Italian.
We love this country, and we love Italy.
Welcome to Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey. I'm Maria Bartiromo, a native of Brooklyn, child of Italian Americans, and granddaughter of Italian immigrants. I'm very proud of my Italian American heritage. My grandparents and my parents were and are people with a tremendously high work ethic. My grandfather, Carmine Bartiromo, came to America in 1919 on a ship called the Rex, as many other Italians did. He settled in Brooklyn, and being a bricklayer from Italy, decided to build a business. He built a restaurant in Brooklyn and named it the Rex Manor after that ship. My father worked there and eventually took over that restaurant and gave me my first job as the coat check girl. And I attribute any success I've had to that hard work ethic. You can imagine the courage it took for my grandfather and so many others to leave a place and a family they loved and knew so well to start anew in America for the promise of opportunity. Please join me as we celebrate Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey.
Major funding for Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey has been provided by the Generoso Pope Foundation, the Columbus Citizens Foundation, Friends of 13 Inc. Dorothy Pasella Fund, the Moglia Family Foundation, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Perella, in memory of Felice L. Zambetti, and Paul and Kimberly Tanico, in honor of Christina Mercurio Tanico. Community station support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
I want to say several of our funders are here. I want to thank them for helping make this documentary possible. I hope you'll all tune in. I'd now like to introduce Bro Adams, chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities and a longtime champion of the study of the humanities, most recently during 15 years as president of Colby College. In 2014, Bro took the helm of the NEH, an organization that has been a vital and constant supporter of public media and projects like the Italian Americans that raise awareness of the contributions people make from all corners of the world. Bro, please come on up.
Thank you, Neil, and good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'd like to offer some very specific thanks to Mayor de Blasio for being here tonight. He also made my night by saying that NEH was beloved in New York. So thank you for that. It's wonderful to hear. Of course, Jeff Bieber, the producer of this wonderful film from WETA, and John Maggio, its director, and Maria Marino, who's written a wonderful companion book to the project. And to all of the NEH staff who worked so hard in helping our funding come together with this film, particularly Karen Middleman and her colleagues in public programs. We are enormously proud to be associated with this film for three basic reasons. First, and most obviously, this is just a wonderful story. And it's told by John in the most wonderful and rich detail. It's a great piece of ethnography and a wonderful representation of this tremendously important community, and rich in all of the detail that you will see in part tonight and then in great part when the film airs on PBS. But of course, beyond its richness and its detail, it's also a story about the struggle and the pain of assimilation, which was not an easy story. And I think you'll see a little bit tonight and more broadly when you view the whole film, the power of that story and the emotion of that story. So in itself, about the Italian-American community, this is a wonderful piece of work. But it's a story not just about the Italian-American community, it's also a national story, because after all, we are the people, the United States of America, that is composed of these stories. This is in part the national narrative of the creation of the Republic out of many different people's stories. I was reminded, as I was thinking about this, of the wonderful words over the visitor center to the Capitol in Washington, out of many one. And that is, of course, the story of the United States of America. And it is why Lincoln was moved to say that we are a republic, not of national origins or specific ethnicity, but we are a republic of principles in which all of these different stories come together. So this film is in part an answer, I think, to the question, what does it mean to be an American? And there's a tremendous public service in reminding us that we are composed of stories like this one. Last but not least, we're honored to be a part of this project because it so powerfully exemplifies the work and the mission of the National Endowment for the Humanities. This is the third in a series of 4 films that are being made about ethnic groups in the United States. Jewish Americans came out in 2008, Latino Americans in 2013, and still to come, an equivalent treatment of Asian Americans. And all of these stand, I think, for the critically important work of the National Endowment for the Humanities in reminding us of where we're from and the many stories that we come from. We are, in many ways, I think, a guardian of the cultural memory and legacy of this country. That's important in itself, but it's also important because it's such an important context for contemporary discussions. And lest we're tempted to forget where we come from, this film and works like it remind us of that, and they also remind us of the task of continuing to understand the story of the United States of America that continues to evolve. So I want to thank again John Maggio and Jeff Bieber for the opportunity they gave the National Endowment for the Humanities to be associated with this great and impressive work, and I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Thank you.